Hey everyone, welcome. We're just letting a few more people in before we go ahead and get started. It's great to see all of you. Monica, we're excited to see you. Ava, it's wonderful. All these great familiar people. Very
Yay, thanks
excited
for
to have you all on
joining.
the call. Wonderful. I think we'll wait one more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started because I know we have a jam-packed agenda today. Lots to talk about. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So hi everyone, welcome to our call on advocating for climate-friendly plant-based food at your school. You all are here because you all are advocates and excited about promoting more plant-based options in your school community. And so I just want to thank you all for being here on this call today. This call is hosted by the Healthy Future Students in Earth Coalition. We are a coalition of various different advocates all across the country that really focus on more plant-based school food. And the name might be changing in the next few months. We are in the process of renaming our coalition, but we are really excited to be here today with all of you. If you go to the next slide. So I think before we get started, I just wanted to move into introductions of who here is hosting the call today. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Morgan to introduce herself.
Awesome. So nice to see all of you. My name is Morgan. I'm currently a sophomore at NYU, and I went to a public high school and campaigned for plant-based options at high school. And so I'm going to kind of talk about my experience doing that today. I've been a long time plant-based eater and just advocate for healthy school food. So excited to share that with you all.
Great, and I'll go next. I'm Nora. I am the Senior Program Manager for the Climate Friendly Food Program at Friends of the Earth, which is a nonprofit environmental organization. I really work with school districts all across the country, but mainly within California, to really shift to more plant-based menu options and also organic and climate-friendly options. So I definitely have a lot of experience on the side of really approaching school districts to advocate for more plant-based options and asking nutrition service teams on how we get more plant-based foods in school. And I'll turn it to Maya.
Hi everyone, great to be here with you all today. My name is Maya. I'm a sophomore right now at the University of Pennsylvania studying environmental studies. I was in the 2023 cohort of the Plant Powered Youth Steering Committee, a group committed to advocating for plant-based foods in K through 12 schools, and I'm really passionate about advocating for a more just food system. So it's great to be here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chelsea Velez. I am the Plant Powered Youth Steering Committee's program coordinator. I'm based in Southern California, outside of Long Beach, California. And my favorite food is probably plant-based, like cookies, like chocolate chip cookies. And I'll pass it back over to Nora.
That sounds so good. I put mine in the chat, but I'm a pasta person. I like pasta with pesto. I'm a big pasta person. Morgan, do you want to share your favorite plant-based meal?
Oh, it's so hard. I love making just like a big like nourish bowl with a bunch of different veggies, purple potatoes, some grains, some tempeh, stuff like that. It's good.
Awesome. Maya, did you share yours? Feel welcome to share your.
No, I didn't. I would say mine is a bowl with different things inside, like rice, beans, and various toppings. I'm a big fan of that.
Awesome. And we have some really good suggestions in the chat. I'm loving the curry and the veggie Korean food. That's so great. I love it. All right, next slide. Feel welcome, everyone, to introduce yourself in the chat, share your favorite plant-based meal. Maybe we can get some really good recipe ideas. So just general housekeeping, we are recording this call today. So if you could keep your mic muted. We would love if you are able to come off camera or to come on camera, sorry, to come on camera to share your faces with all of us. But in particular, especially for the breakout groups, it's really important. We are going to do some breakout groups, and this is a workshop today. So we will be kind of sharing with one another just to brainstorm some ideas together. Please feel welcome to participate, keep an open mind. I think we're all coming from different perspectives. And then we are raffling a tote bag for our participants today. We have a really cute plant-based, like with different veggies on it, school food tote bag. So that will come later in the call. And again, feel welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to play this quick, like 1-minute video just to get us started on what climate-friendly plant-based school food is. So Maya, if you could go ahead and hit play.
What can you do to fight climate change at school? The answer might surprise you. The food served in schools has a huge climate impact, and having more plant-based options can make a big difference. Food production is driving more than 1/3 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and production of animal foods has the biggest agricultural impact on our climate. Beef alone has 15 to 100 times the carbon footprint of beans and lentils. Plus, most animal agriculture operations pollute the air and water in local communities, especially communities of color. With billions of meals served in US schools every year, school food can be a powerful tool for fighting climate change. Having more plant-based options at school is also an important part of building racial equity and serving culturally relevant foods. Most people of color cannot digest lactose, and many traditional diets around the world are plant-based. Students who don't or can't eat animal products because of their health, culture, religion, or personal beliefs should have the right to a healthy plant-based meal at school. Take action now. Your voice and your choices matter. Ask for more plant-based options in your cafeteria and help spread the word today.
All right, so hopefully that video just helps ground us a little bit and really kind of centers the work that we're doing and why we are all here today. Plant-based food has a huge climate impact, and even just small shifts in adding more plant-based options in schools, more culturally diverse options in schools can really help provide more choices and also make a more environmental difference and an impact, right, on our planet, both for the health of our students, but also for our planet. So just kind of grounding, centering ourselves in that work. And all of you are here because you are advocates for this work. And so we just want to thank you for being here today. This presentation is really going to be centered on the how to really advocate for more plant-based options at your school. And so it's this whole presentation is really more focused, and we're going to jump right into it on really what are the grounded steps that you can take to really be an advocate in your school district community. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Morgan, and Maya, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, so as Nora said, we're going to talk about how you can actually do this at your school's cafeteria if you're a student. And I did that in high school, so I'm going to kind of talk about just my experience and kind of the takeaways that I learned. So the first step that you want to start with is to just kind of get a sense of where your school cafeteria is currently at. So, the questions that you might want to ask yourself are, first of all, are there any vegan options available? And if there are, what percentage of the meals are vegan? And also, if there are any sustainability commitments that your school has made, because if they have made some, then pushing for more vegan options will obviously help those sustainability commitments. So it is super useful to use this campus dining assessment, which was made by the Better Food Foundation. There's a hyperlinked example in these slides that we'll share with you all afterwards, so you can take a look at it. And it kind of guides you through calculating this for your school. And just as an example, if there are 3 meals offered where it's rice plus vegetables and then a choice of tofu, chicken, or fish, that would be a 33% plant-based menu. And so you can kind of calculate that for the overall cafeteria just averaged out at your school. And then you can get that initial assessment. Next slide. And so then once you kind of figure out where your school is at, you can start to set a goal of where you want to go from your current situation, and then also get support from other organizations. And again, these are all hyperlinked that you'll have access to after the presentation. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are some examples of high school and university level successful campaigns that students have run, and then also some organizations that offer support for students doing campaigns like these. Maya mentioned that she was a youth steering committee member, and I was also in the youth steering committee, and that's an awesome organization that can support students in advocating for plant-based school food. And I also want to shout out Plant-Based Peers, which is a website that I co-created with some YSC alum. I know Ava Cuevas is on this call, and she also worked on it. So we offer one-on-one coaching for students who are trying to do work like this. So definitely check out all of those links. Next slide. So some more details on setting goals. It's important to have a specific goal that you want when you're preparing to contact your nutrition service director. So you want to figure out what you want to achieve and how you can support the work of nutrition services while also advocating for climate-friendly plant-based options. So just some examples of goals that you could ask for are to create a salad bar, have a 50% plant-based commitment by a certain year. On the university level, I go to NYU, and we recently signed the Cool Food Pledge, which is a sustainability commitment, eliminating a plant-based milk upcharge, oat milk default in all cafes, just some examples. Next slide. And kind of aligned with getting an initial assessment of where your school is at, it's important to research the menu, look at the current plant-based options, identify if there are any easy menu swaps that can be quickly switched out, like plant-based milk instead of cow's milk. Next slide. And then once you've figured out where you're at and where you want to go, it's time to contact your nutrition service director. So you can find whoever this is at your school through just looking up on the website of your school and going to the nutrition services section, and then send them an email. And there's a sample email hyperlinked here that you can copy and paste. And you can also feel free to CC any relevant kitchen staff members that you know. Like if you have a personal relationship with one of them, that would be awesome. And then some tips are to include action items in this email. And if you don't get a response, you can give them a call or even just show up in person. Sometimes that's just one of the ways to get people to listen to you.
Morgan,
Next slide.
can I add something there?
Yeah, sure.
So just a little bit more background, especially for those of you who are unfamiliar with nutrition service directors and kind of the role that they do. So within the United States, there's school districts that are composed of various different schools. So you might be at, Southwest High School, but your high school is a part of a larger district. And so that district is comprised of multiple schools within that network. And the district has a nutrition service department. And so that nutrition service department is really in charge of the menu. And this is actually, there's like some good news and bad news about this. The good news is that with the nutrition service director, that one person and that department can make and affect changes for the entire district. So even just a small menu change can affect thousands of students across not just your school, but other schools within the district. So this is the good news. The maybe on the other side of things, I won't say bad news, is that, you really have only like one contact or one department that you're working with. And so it's really important right away to have a good relationship with this department, to set something up, to reach out in kind of a friendly manner, really kind of establishing a good rapport. And that director also holds, I mean, truth be told, like a lot of power in terms of the menu changes in the district. So I think, it's nice in the sense that there's like one contact, which is that nutrition service director. But on the other hand, it can be really challenging, if that director doesn't want to hear from you, or, if they have a lot going on or on their plate. So we're going to talk about that in more detail and like what that looks like. But I just want to kind of emphasize that there is such an opportunity to affect change because, again, this director and this nutrition service department oversees all the schools within the network. And of course, this is at the high school level. At the university. Like if you're at a university, this would more so look like the nutrition service department at the university, which then again also serves many different cafeterias, right? That director might oversee different cafeterias on that university campus. And then for middle school, it's going to look the same as high school. So if you're in middle school, again, you're going to want to look for the nutrition service director at your school district, not just for your high school, or sorry, your middle school or wherever you are. Not like the actual school site, but actually the whole district as a whole. So just kind of explaining that a little bit in more detail. Because it's not intuitive, right? You go to a high school or your middle school, you're just thinking, oh, the person in my cafeteria, they're the one in charge of the menu. It's actually usually your nutrition service director that works for the entire district. They're usually the one that helps control the menu. All right, Morgan, I'll pass it off back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for pointing that out. There at my high school, our nutrition services director for our district was never there. So the only time that we could meet with her was on a Zoom call. And then one time I went over to the middle school that had the central kitchen where most of the food was prepared. And then I actually met her in person, but she was rarely at our high school. So good point. So then when you're thinking about preparing for the meeting, these are just some tips. We're going to go through a sample agenda in a sec, but you really want to prepare before this meeting and have a clear idea of what you want to say and what you want to get across. But also, as Nora mentioned, it's really important to start building a really good relationship from the beginning, because this is going to be probably the only person that has the power to change the menus throughout your whole district. And if you can establish a good relationship with them in the beginning, that's just going to serve you well throughout this whole process. Next slide. So this is a sample meeting agenda for around 30 minutes. I think the first time that we met with our nutrition services director at my high school was around 30 minutes too. So first of all, start with an introduction, tell them who you are, and it really helps to share a personal story and why you care about this, because nutrition services directors, they want students to enjoy the food that they're serving, and they really do care about the students whom they're serving every day. And so the fact that you're taking time out of your day, probably have sports practice and homework to do, the fact that you're taking time out of your day to go talk to them about how to improve the cafeteria, that can be something really valuable for them. And make sure that you bring that across in a positive way. So yeah, share a personal story. And then number 2 is to ask questions. I think as Nora was talking about, kind of the whole school food situation and the bureaucracy behind it, just in regards to where they get their food from and all the different regulations they have to follow. There's a lot of complicated aspects that go on behind the scenes that students aren't necessarily aware of. So it's really important to ask questions and understand where they're coming from, and ask them about, what challenges are you facing with regards to whatever you're asking them for. I know that when I was meeting with my nutrition services director, one of the issues that they faced was that it was hard to find new food vendors to buy from, because they had to go through many different, Nora, you might be able to talk better on this, but all the different food service providers and stuff. It was very complicated, so they had to kind of explain it to us. And so you just really understand where they're coming from and where they're at in regards to whatever you're asking them for. And then, offer support that you as a student can provide. So you know a bunch of kids at your school. You can go around and ask people to fill out a survey or sign a petition and get student feedback. And that's something that can be really valuable to nutrition services, to understand how students are actually liking the food that they're serving. And then in the last 5 minutes, wrap up, determine the next steps, schedule a follow-up, make sure that you're keeping them in the loop with what you're trying to do. Next slide.
All right, so Morgan did a great job touching on this, but I think just one thing I wanted to share was to really take the time beforehand to consider what challenges nutrition service directors and their staff and their department are going through. So one of the key goals for this meeting, I think it's really important to keep an open mind, and really like a posture of understanding, of like understanding where nutrition service directors are coming from, what's on their plate, what challenges do they have, really approaching it from a place of compassion, curiosity, keeping an open mind of what's going on. What does your school food operation look like? How many students are you serving? What is it that you can, like, how do you make menu decisions? These are all some questions, and we're going to go into questions, but these are just some of the different questions that you can start asking to really understand and get a sense of what nutrition service directors go through on a day-to-day and how they make their menu decisions. So I think it's important not to come with preconceived notions and assume the best intentions. Ultimately, nutrition service directors, their job is to feed students. That's what they care about. They want all of the students in their district to be fed. And so there might be some hesitation around plant-based options because, let's say maybe the students won't eat it or something like that. But ultimately, nutrition service directors really care about what are the kids going to get fed every day? They don't want any of their students to be hungry. Next slide. All right, so then we're going right into it. I want to stop talking at this point. I think we're going to do some breakout groups. So we are going to do our first breakout group today because this is a workshop, and I would love for all of you all to participate and keep an open mind as we go into our breakout group. If you all could come on camera, that would be really helpful. It kind of sucks to talk to like a black screen. So if you could come on camera when you are in the breakout group, and just be very open to discussion, I would love to hear from all of you. But the question is, what challenges, I think we're going to brainstorm, what challenges do you think nutrition service directors face? And what do you think nutrition service directors consider when thinking about adding plant-based options? So with that said, I think we'll go into a breakout group. Chelsea, I think if you could maybe come off mute and share how we're going into breakout groups.
Yeah, so we're going to be divided into 3 breakout rooms. So folks who are currently middle and high school students are going to go in the very first breakout room. It's going to be titled middle/high school. And you're going to be with Nora and Maya. And then high school graduates/college students, you're going to join a second breakout room. That's going to be with Morgan. And then, community members, non-students, maybe you're here as part of an organization. You're going to be with me in the very third breakout room. I'll pause there. Any questions? Hi, Jody. I see you in the chat. I'm going to open the room right now.
I love the Minnesota representation. So
I love
great.
that too. Okay.
All
I opened the
right.
room. You'll have about 7 minutes. So join the room you should be in.
All right. We'll see you all back in 7 minutes. Welcome back. Actually, I'm going to unpin us because can we see everybody? Is there like a way to view?
I can unpin you. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to do it, but I'm struggling. I did it. All right. I wanted to do like a speaker view where we could just see all of each other. Okay, can everyone like see all of each other now? Awesome. So if you could put yourself in a view where you can see everybody's faces, I think that's great. So I just wanted to come back together and bring us all together about what we talked about in our breakout groups around what some of the challenges that nutrition service directors face. So maybe we can start. I'm going to call out our group. I'm so sorry, y'all. But maybe we can start with our group. Does anyone from the middle and high school group want to share and come off mute and share just some of the challenges that were brainstormed? Noah, can I call you out?
I'll start.
All right.
I said some of the challenges that the food service directors might face. For my school, it'd be like budget, and then also just communicating with students and seeing what's working and what's not working, what they like on the school menu and what they don't like. And yeah, that was the two biggest challenges that I mentioned. If Morgan wants to go next. I mean, not Morgan, I'm sorry, Ava.
Yeah, Ava's mic isn't working, so maybe Ava can drop some challenges that she shared in the chat. But Maya, maybe if you want to share, you had some really good ideas too.
Yeah, so I was saying how I'm in college now, but when I was in high school, I had a conversation with my food service director, and she was saying that she wants to make sure she meets like the needs slash like wants of all students, and like that can be difficult to do when there are so many students with possibly like different opinions on what should be put on the menu. So that was a problem. And there are also guidelines on the nutrients within food that she has to follow. And so that can be a challenge as well. Something that I thought of that I didn't mention in our group is also the lack of facilities in schools. My school can't do scratch cooking because we don't have the facilities to do. And so she mentioned that that can also be limiting in like the plant-based options that the school could provide.
Great. Morgan, can I pass it over to you for your group on from university level students? I don't know if you want to call out some people from your group.
Sure. Yeah, Lena, do you want to share some of the stuff that we brainstormed?
We kind of talked about how sourcing could be a like an obstacle because like Morgan said that in her high school um uh they had to kind of get stuff from one company and it would be really hard to get more stuff.
Yeah, I was talking about, and Nora, I think feel like you would be able to explain this better than I was trying to. But like,
yeah, I can help.
With the whole food service vendor versus provider.
Yeah, so I think I can, school districts have a set of, so this is at the middle and high school level. School nutrition service directors have a pot of funding that they get from the federal government that they can use to spend on school food. And those dollars can be used to purchase school food, and the federal government has a list of USDA, it's through the USDA foods program, where school districts can purchase options at a reduced price using their commodity food dollars. So they could go out and purchase, separately, but oftentimes through the USDA foods program, they'll get that at a reduced price. So there's a lot of discounted foods. What's unfortunate is that there's not a lot of plant-based options on that USDA foods list. And so that's one of the things that Friends of the Earth is trying to advocate for, is to get more plant-based options through the USDA foods list. And we just now got like a black bean burger finally, after 4 years of advocacy, I think we finally have a black bean burger that's being added to the USDA foods list. And so that's great. In terms of if a school district wants to purchase outside of that list, that is still an option. So a school district can still go and purchase a different product. One of the things that they need is a product formulation statement or a child nutrition label. And this gets really technical, so you don't need to memorize this, but that they need the product to meet certain nutrition guidelines for the school district to serve to students. So for example, they couldn't, add something with a ton of sugar or a ton of sodium, because that wouldn't be allowed in the school district. With that said, there are a ton of plant-based products that do follow this guideline and do meet child nutrition service standards. So I think it exists, the possibilities do exist. Uh-oh. No, I froze. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Like, that's my worst nightmare is when I totally freeze. So anyways, they exist. Those options do exist, and I think it's definitely very possible for nutrition service directors to source that. And that's, I think, where Friends of the Earth can help. So if you're looking for like a plant-based, nugget or plant-based sausage crumble or an egg substitute, those products are out there that meet those guidelines. And that's certainly something that we can support as well. So you don't need to know all the technical details, but I think just for the purposes of this conversation, sourcing can be a challenge, right? It can be a challenge to figure out, okay, where do I get that product from? If I'm not going to use my USDA foods list, where can I get an alternative? So I want to keep us grounded in the conversation around challenges. Maybe Chelsea or Morgan, is there anything else that you all talked about? And then Chelsea, I'd love to hear from your group as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Chelsea.
Yeah, so our group had a really great conversation. We heard from Victoria, who shared about quite a few bills that they're doing in Hawaii that have, faced, unfortunately, Department of Education pushback. So that's something we chatted about. We also heard from, I cannot remember, I believe we heard from Bryce. Yeah, we heard from Bryce, who, talked about student demand. There could be confusion with like USDA law versus like what the school can actually serve, unavailability of just like products for the schools to purchase, and taste. But I thought it was, just really interesting to hear from Victoria. So Victoria, if you want to share a little bit more.
I think just for the purposes of the time, Victoria, we do want to hear from you, but I think for the purposes of the time, I think we'll just dive back into things. Real quick, I love, Chelsea, that you mentioned taste too. That's something that didn't come up in our group, but like preference, right? If I serve this on my menu, are the kids going to eat it? That's so important, right? Am I only feeding like one or two students, or am I going to feed everybody? That's something we hear a lot in terms of the concerns. So Maya, do you mind pulling up the slides again?
Yep, I'm on it.
All right, so we're going to jump right back into another breakout group. It'll be the same group, so we're going to do the same people, same layout. And Chelsea, let's just do 5 minutes for this. Oh, let's go back one more. I forgot that I was going to talk about the challenges. I like my little bullet points. Here we go. So I just threw up some challenges here, like staffing, kitchen capacity, procurement challenges. I think we talked about vendors, but also you might be working with a vendor and they're just out of eggs, right? Like eggs are a big thing right now, a big topic, but like, are they able to source it from their vendor? Maybe they're out of supplies. The cost, I had a nutrition service director talk about how they're just working with pennies. They budget based on pennies. And that's just a challenge, given the short cost. Nutrition standards, feeding in bulk, feeding a large amount of students. We talked about student preference. Are the students going to eat it? Am I only feeding a few students? So yeah, just wanted to throw that up. And I think it's important to kind of ground ourselves in that and to really acknowledge that because it's so important as we talk about addressing nutrition service directors and asking for change. We first need to address the elephant in the room, which is that nutrition service directors do face a lot of challenges. And next slide. Morgan, do you think that we have time to play the video or should we kind of save that for later?
Yeah, it'll be in the slides. So there's a video on the slides. I made a short little documentary about behind the scenes of my school district's nutrition services team and like what they do. They wake up at 4:30 every morning. So feel free to take a look at that for an insider scoop.
Yeah,
But
we
can
did
skip it
put
for
some
now.
really cool videos in. So if you want to just take a look at that at a later point, we have some great videos about nutrition service directors talking about a day in the life. So be sure to check that out later. So again, we're going to jump right back into it. We'll do the same groups. But if the next prompt is, what questions can you ask your directors, your nutrition service directors, to understand and learn more? So given the challenges, given our conversation around what district directors face, what are some of the questions that if you go into a meeting would be really helpful to start getting that conversation going? Because you can't just be like, hey, director, I want plant-based options, right? You have to first have that conversation. You have to first kind of get to know them, learn more about the work that they're doing before you can really make that request. And so as you think about like, what are some of the questions that you would ask your director to start that conversation? Morgan, is there anything else you want to add there before we kick off?
I think you said it well. We'll discuss in our
All right,
meetings.
sounds good. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Let's do it the other way around. So Chelsea, I'll have you start with what your group discussed.
Yeah, totally. So we started with a kind of a broad question. So the first one we thought about was what kind of roadblocks do the food service director or even a legislator, what do they have to serving plant-based options? We talked about what is the budget like? Is serving plant-based food even an option based on your budget? What's your capacity like to do that? And also just like humanizing the food service director. So asking them like, why are they interested in the work that they're doing? How did they get their current job? We also talked about how we could take, what we're learning in this workshop session to maybe other spaces, like a private school maybe, or a church, for example.
Ooh, I love that. That's great. Morgan, I'll pass it to you. Or does anyone from that group want to share anything else? Chelsea, that's a great summary. All right, Morgan, I'll pass it over to you for your group.
Yeah, so we talked about a couple of specific questions that you could ask, asking about procurement and where food can come from, and also about staffing and like training for cooking plant-based options. And that's something that my school had to deal with. I'm pretty sure that they had a plant-based food training day where they like learned how to make plant-based food, which is great, but also kind of too bad that most people don't actually know how to. But that can be a challenge when schools are understaffed, like mine was, because scratch cooking takes a lot of effort. So asking them about that, I think, is really helpful, and just like asking them about their challenges is good to build that positive relationship too, because you're interested in what they're doing and just showing empathy and showing that you care about learning more about the challenges that they're facing.
That's great. Awesome. Well, our group got way off track. We were talking a little bit about, when the right time of year is to reach out to your director. And I was saying that actually now is a great time of year. It's the spring. A lot of districts are making menu decisions now to go as they plan for next school year. So actually now is a great time. I think a lot of people think the fall or the start of the school year, but at that point they've often have created their menus. So they might, if you're in the fall, districts are probably planning for their spring menu. And if they're in the spring, they're probably thinking about their next year's menu cycle. And summer is also a good time as well. I mean, I wouldn't, summer is kind of you never know. Sometimes directors go out on vacation and stuff, but often a lot of districts directors like to plan in the summer, but this is a great time of year. We talked about how Earth Month is next month. So that might be a good excuse to be like, oh, hey, Earth Day, maybe start piloting something for Earth Day, or think about like Farm to School Month in October. There are great like months that can get a school district started with just like, that kind of thing. So that might be a good like intro for the district of, hey, would you do something for Earth Day? The other thing Ava mentioned, some asking questions about their budget, what are the limitations in terms of their budget? And then how can you further support the kitchen staff and the staff that are creating the food? So those are all just some questions that were brainstormed. Maya, if you could pull up the PowerPoint, I would really appreciate that.
All right, sharing now.
All right. Okay, next slide. So I threw up some questions. You can go back and take a look at this. We are going to share out the slides, but these are just some sample questions if you meet with your director. Next slide. These are also some questions on like, how do they make their menu decisions? How do they decide what to put on their menu? These are great questions to ask. And Chelsea also put a link in the chat with a whole bunch of more questions. Next slide. All right. So again, just going back to like being curious, focus on understanding what are the kitchen operations? What are the challenges? How are menu decisions made? Take notes, make sure to listen to what they're saying because these are things that you can bring back to them. So, hey, I remember that you mentioned in our first meeting that staff was a big challenge. Here's like a recipe or here's a few recipes that don't really utilize a lot of staff labor. So you're able to address the challenges that they bring up in future meetings. But I think that first meeting, it's really important to just stay curious and understand what is going on school menus. And Morgan, I just realized you were supposed to present on that slide, so I apologize. Morgan, is there anything else that you want to add here?
I think you said it great. I'm looking at the last bullet point that says avoid being defensive/reactive, listen. I think that's just a great point to re-emphasize, to show empathy and just I think I saw someone put this in the chat, but to have it that you're both coming at this from the same page. It's not you versus nutrition services, it's you and nutrition services trying to make the food that's being served better and more appealing and more accessible to everyone. So I think that's just a great general vibe to strive for.
All right, next slide. Morgan,
So-
I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, offering support. I mentioned this earlier, but as a student, you can get nutrition services things that they can't get themselves. Student surveys and preferences, like you have access to the entire student body. They're going to listen to you as a student more than they are going to listen to a nutrition services director, probably. And also giving them recipe ideas. We have a bunch of links of recipe ideas on the Plant-Based Peers website that is linked in the slideshow. So there are a bunch of plant-based recipes that adhere to USDA guidelines that you can give nutrition services and say, look at all these amazing recipes that you can cook and offer students that adhere to everything you have to adhere to. Student commitments and creating a menu advisory committee. My high school actually had that after we started reaching out to them, then they created this menu advisory committee that invited parents and students and just community members to meet monthly and talk about the school menu. Marketing support, we did some like raffle taste test events with the new foods being offered. And we had a lot of student excitement around that because we were giving out samples and there was a raffle and prizes. So student marketing is great. And then supporting the rollout of plant-based options, again, just like hosting fun events. Like as a student, you can kind of think of fun events that will get other students to come that nutrition services directors don't have the time nor the bandwidth to organize. So those
Can
are
I
all great things to do.
can I say one thing too? Like, I think it's always a risk for a nutrition service director to put a new option on the menu, whether it's plant-based or not. But it's a bit scary when you put something out there as like, are the students going to eat this? So if a district is trying to put a new plant-based option, I think it's really great for students to help promote it. And Morgan, I think you did this in your community too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had like a whole bunch of like posters and like a fun event just to really get students to eat the plant-based options because I think it shows that support too.
Yeah, it was fun. And we did that during Earth Month too. So lots of hub around it. Next slide. And then here are just some other ideas of campaigns that you can work on if advocating for plant-based meal options isn't the best route for you at your school. You can work on plant-based milk options, reducing food waste, working on plastic, and advocating for more organic options, just in case, you know, you talk with your nutrition services team and you decide that one of these campaigns is better for your specific situation. Next slide. All right, I think Nora, you're on for this one.
All right, so just yeah, wrap up the meeting. You know, when you're finished concluding, make sure you identify next steps. And sometimes the next steps are, let me think about it and get back to you. You know, you don't have to always be the expert right away. You can take the time to reflect and think about it before you get back. But just be sure that you identify the next steps and you're very clear of when you will next meet, when you'll hear from each other. I think really making sure that you can kind of agree on another meeting time because nutrition service directors are really busy. And so making sure you get on their calendar, get another meeting, even if it's not for another like 2 months, it's still really good to, you know, at least set another meeting or create some action items. And just agree to stay in communication, understand how directors want to be communicated with. You know, do they prefer email or how do they prefer to be communicated with? So that's great. Next slide. All right. And then make sure that you do your own reflections. You know, how did the meeting go? What challenges were shared? How can you keep the momentum going? What programs do you want to do? How do you want to sustain this? And who else can be involved? All right. And then, you know, be sure to send a thank you email. I think that's always really appreciated. And make sure you outline kind of next steps, what you want to do. Follow up with the nutrition service director in kind of a timely manner. Even if it's, hey, I'm still working on this, but I just wanted to let you know, here's what I'm still doing. And I'm thinking of you and thank you so much for meeting with me. And here's what you can keep it vague, but I think just keeping that open line of communication is really important. Yeah, next slide. And then I also wanted to bring up this slide. This is an interesting slide here, but I think it's really important to share some of the realities of some situations that you may get into when doing this kind of important advocacy work. So sometimes the nutrition service director won't meet with you or doesn't want to meet with you. Or maybe you met with a director and they're not getting back to you. And so I first and foremost want to say, that's where that mindfulness and compassion really come in, is it's first and foremost to understand and be compassionate about where nutrition service directors are, all the stuff that's on their plate, what they're working on to feed students. And ultimately, that nutrition service directors do want to feed their kids. And so even if they're not getting back to you, even if that you're hearing radio silence, it's important to understand and ground yourself in recognizing, people, they're human too. Right? They are also human. They have stuff on their plate and maybe they're really busy. And so I threw up some other bullet points here of other ways that you can get involved to get the attention of the nutrition service director. You can start a student petition. You can meet with the school board. You can get your principal involved. And then just make sure that, again, if they don't reply to an email, don't be discouraged. It's possible they're just busy that week, or maybe they're out on vacation, or who knows what happened, right? So feel welcome. Don't be discouraged. Feel welcome to send another email, give them a call, show up at a district event, try to meet them in person. Yeah, and I think just this is kind of part of the natural advocacy work, is sometimes it does take that persistence, and that's okay to be persistent, and to stand up for yourself, because ultimately students are the customer. You all are the ones that get fed every day. You're eating the meals at school, and so you have the right to make your voice heard. And so I think if you are coming from that very compassionate and grounded place, and you're expressing what it is that you are looking for, that's really what matters. And ultimately, again, just wanting to encourage you to keep on persisting. And sometimes that's just the case around advocacy. Next slide. Morgan, I don't know if you want to share anything else there, but I'll turn it to you.
No, I think you said that all well. And Chelsea pointed out in the chat, this was an earlier question. And I can just speak a little bit about my personal experience. When we first reached out to our nutrition services team, they just said, no, we can't meet with you. And then we followed up again a week later and they said, no, we can't meet with you. And so then we were discouraged. And so we created a petition, and we got I think we got a little over 100 signatures. And then we went back to nutrition services, and we had also gathered some student testimonials to just show that students at our school actually wanted plant-based options. And then we contacted nutrition services again, and we're like, hey, look, over 100 people signed this petition that we want more plant-based options at school. And here are some testimonials from students, and then they finally agreed to meet with us. So sometimes it just takes a little extra effort. And, rather than having a group of 4 students contacting nutrition services, if it's a group of 4 students with the support of 100 other students, that can be more impactful. So, even if it happens, you can still have a successful campaign.
Yeah. And I think it's important, before you go out and do a whole bunch of petitioning, right? Or that kind of thing, to first reach out. Because sometimes I've also heard from some students where it's they started a whole petition and the director was like, wait a minute, I would have just met with you. So the first person that you should absolutely contact is your director. And you should definitely follow up and send another email after a few weeks. I mean, Morgan, I know you sent 4 or 5 emails with all silence before you actually went ahead and started a petition. And so definitely just make sure, think about it from their point of view. They would definitely want to be looped in, and not blindsided. So make sure that you first try to reach out to your director, send a few different emails, but then, yeah, don't be afraid to start a petition. Don't be afraid to really advocate for yourself, to get other people involved. You can meet with the school board, talk to your principal. There's definitely other people. The ultimate person that you are trying to influence is the nutrition service director, because they are the ones that are making the menu shift. But sometimes that takes, rallying other people to ultimately influence that nutrition service director.
Great points. Work smarter, not harder. And then this slide is just about ensuring maintenance and consistency of your campaign. So assuming that you've like talked to your nutrition services director, they're on board, you're getting more plant-based options offered, that's awesome. You want to make sure that you're regularly checking in with nutrition services. You could establish monthly meetings like what happened at my school, create a little committee is a great way to keep them looped in and keep them thinking about plant-based options. Because if you're not always talking about it and bringing it up with them, they have a bunch of other stuff on their mind. Like plant-based options isn't at the forefront. At the forefront of their mind is feeding however many thousand kids every single day. And then also dreaming big, maintaining a momentum for the campaign's future. And like once you achieve something, like maybe you have gotten a daily plant-based option offered, then maybe you can think about what your next steps are. You can kind of like go through this process again and reevaluate your cafeteria options, do a new calculation and figure out, oh my God, we're at 50% plant-based options now. And then think about what you want your next goal to be. And then this point is so important, but maintaining your work by recruiting younger students. That was the tragic flaw at my high school's campaign because we were all juniors and seniors as we were doing it. And then we all graduated and there were no younger students. And so there was no more constant pressure. And so there is no longer a daily vegan option, although they do still have vegan options a couple times a week. So recruit underclassmen is so important and get them excited to carry on your legacy. Next slide. These are some pictures of the food that was offered at my high school. I tried the vegan pho and the taco bowl. Sadly, the barbecue jackfruit sliders were all out by the time I made it to the cafeteria. They all look so good, but they were amazing. And it was so exciting to see all of our hard work finally pay off. And we were talking and trying to get input from students who were at the cafeteria trying all these options, and everyone loved this. Like, yes, everything is vegan, but like everyone, even people who are vegetarian, who are omnivorous, love these options because, I mean, look at them, they look delicious. They were just nourishing and healthy rather than, you know, a sad, floppy cheeseburger, and can sustain you throughout the day. So it was super exciting. And so we just wanted to share some wins. And Nora, if you want to talk a bit about just your work with California specifically, and all the schools that you're supporting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with over 100 different districts in California, and I think that there is this growing movement around more plant-based options. I think districts more and more every day are hearing from students that they want more vegan, more plant-based options on the menu, whether it's for cultural, religious, dietary, environmental, animal rights reasons. You know, there's so many different reasons. And I think all of you are here on the call because you care so much. And just wanting to recognize that, again, students are the customer. And so the more that you are able to voice your opinion, your ideas around menu options, I think that's the way to affect change. And what's wonderful about the way that the district structure works is if you're able to influence that nutrition service director in shifting the menu, you're not only affecting shifts for your high school or middle school, you're affecting hundreds of other districts or other schools within your district. You're changing the menu, and not only for the students in your grade level, but all the grade levels and then future grade levels as well. So even though that this work can be challenging, and I think that's advocacy work can often be challenging, you can really make a difference. And sometimes school districts, the districts that I work with, they don't want to hear from me. You know, like, who am I? They want to hear from students. Like, what are the students care about? Because that's what they care about. And, you know, if you're a parent, that's another thing. They care about, like, the students, the parents, the community members. And so the more that they can hear that, I think the more we can get options like the ones that are shown here on this beautiful screen on the menu. And I think one last thing is just not to focus on the the specific details, I think this has come up in our breakout group of like, well, how do I find vendors or what are the recipes and that kind of thing. That can come later. I think that happens through conversation. And as you have conversations together, you all can kind of make those decisions and figure that out. The important thing is to get that buy-in, to get district leadership and the nutrition service director to really buy into the idea of, oh yeah, well, maybe I will try plant-based. Which I know for Morgan, like at first, the director was not gonna do that. And now suddenly she's actually like a big advocate for adding more plant-based. She's come on calls to other directors and she's like, you should try it. The students are really interested in this. And like all the students take the meals. So, I think you're like generating a lot of advocacy and support through this work. All right. Chelsea, I'm wondering if you can help kind of monitor the next couple slides and sort of how we should kind of go from here. Because I know we have a tote bag raffle and then we want to do a Q&A.
Yeah, I think we can definitely start with just some question and answers. I would love it if any of the students out there would come off mute. If you want to share, like, if you have done any advocacy work in your school districts, if you have any questions, for Nora or Morgan, or even for Maya, or any of the other folks on this call. Anyone want to come off mute? No worries at all. I've been taking notes as questions have been coming in. So one of the questions that we had from a student who registered was, how would you approach, let's say, an environmental club at your school who might not be interested in plant-based school food? How would you approach reaching out to them as you build support for your campaign?
Yeah, I can take this one. We did that at my high school. We prepared, I think we prepared like a little presentation about, the environmental impact of plant-based eating. And so whatever club it is that you're reaching out to, I think reaching out to an environmental club is a super great idea. Target think about how plant-based food supports their goal. So if it's an environmental club, talk about the environmental impacts of plant-based food, of animal-based food and the benefits of plant-based, and how that totally relates to what the environmental club is doing. And not necessarily that you're a vegan group. I myself am vegan and I do vegan advocacy, but this wasn't about veganism necessarily. It was about having more accessible, healthy, plant-based options. And so that wasn't a vegan club, but we were still able to get people excited about it because this is a campaign that is relevant to the environment in general. And so, I think one thing that we kind of avoided was talking about veganism, because, it can be taboo and some people can be kind of turned off by it. So we really made sure to target it towards whatever the club was involved in. And so you could even approach like a social justice club and talk about the social justice impacts of factory farming and how plant-based food is more accessible for everyone. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Morgan. Another question, I think, to Morgan is, can you give us an example of how some students have had, successes with changing their school menus, beyond like the work that you do? Have you heard of any other great success stories that you want to share?
Yeah, I can. This was in one of the early slides. You don't have to go back to it, Maya, but slide 6, for those of you who are gonna look at the slides afterwards, we have some examples of wins from other schools. So, in Brookline, Massachusetts, I'm pretty sure throughout all of Brookline, they've established a Meatless Mondays campaign. And then we have the Daily Vegan Option at my high school. And then on the university level, UCLA did a really amazing Veg Fest I'm pretty sure it was like a week of events centering around plant-based food. And then UC Berkeley and UT Austin achieved a 50% vegan dining commitment by 2027. And then at NYU, we started the first annual Plant-Based Food Fest, and now it's a yearly event where we get a bunch of local brands and restaurants to table and give samples of their food. And then we're also trying to get those connected to the dining halls. So hopefully there's a lot of hoops to jump through to get food into the dining halls, but we're hoping to be able to do that in the future. So yeah, lots of wins around the country.
Thanks, Morgan. I see Nora's adding some student blogs in the chat, so make sure to check that out. I also want to highlight the Plant Powered Youth Steering Committee, which Morgan, Maya, and a few folks on the call are, alumni of. So I see Noah's in here. I know Ava joined as well. So the Plant Powered Youth Steering Committee is just a program of the coalition who is hosting this webinar. And the students work on federal policy priorities. So things like shifting USDA school food policy. Part of that program is going to DC and meeting with legislators, so advocating on the federal level. But in addition to that, the students will also be completing plant-based school food campaigns in their school district at the local level. So it's a great, program to help get, that one-on-one guidance. It's only 14 students each year. And we're almost done with recruiting for 2025, but I will definitely put information, in the chat and in our follow-up email about that opportunity. Another question before we jump over to the raffle is for Morgan. What would you say to a student who might, feel alone in advocacy? How would you approach that if someone's just feeling alone or maybe disheartened or not receiving a response?
I would say I was there. I was that person until like junior year of high school when I started this campaign. When I first went vegetarian and then vegan, and was discovering this passion of mine, I didn't know anyone else who shared this passion. And so I did feel really alone. And I would say, you're doing exactly the right thing by being at this webinar or watching the recording of it. And start by taking action and reaching out to people for support. And we've linked so many different resources and programs that can help you in this presentation. So definitely take advantage of those. Also, you can email me, you can email Nora, you can email all of us, and we're here to support and help. And it's difficult when there's no one else in person at your school, but we're all here and we can have Zoom calls. So I would say like reach out and seek guidance and support and community, because I feel like that is so important to keep your own personal momentum going.
And I see, Lena, you asked a question on how to get involved in the YSC. You can still definitely get involved. Our applications are open on a rolling basis. So if you want to apply, I would say do that ASAP. I can drop the application link. And just on the YSC, as we have so many applicants and we can only accept 14 students. So if you don't, get into the program this year, please apply again and again and again. It took Morgan, I think, 2 or 3 times to apply before getting into the program. Beyond that, though, you'll be added to our email list and we will continue to send opportunities for you to engage with the YSC. So great question. My very final question for Morgan, Nora, Maya, if you want to jump in, is what inspires you to continue working on plant-based school food?
Nora, you start.
Yeah, absolutely. I was that student as well, Morgan. I was the student where I grew up with a single parent and I did not have plant-based options on the menu. I was a vegetarian as a very young kid, and my school just did not have things for me to eat. And my parent did not have a lot of time or capacity to make me really good lunches. And so, you know, I did a lot of like eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so for me, it's really important. What keeps me going every day is just like feeding my inner child of like really helping to nourish other students out there and recognizing that when we make a change and a shift on school menus, you're not only impacting yourself, but you're impacting all the other students that you go to school with, and then also any future students that are enroll in the school. So, you know, that can make just such a huge difference in offering students more choices, healthier options, more culturally diverse options on the menu, and then also just nourishing our planet and making it better for future generations. Even just a small shift from like a beef burger to a plant-based burger can have a huge environmental impact. And so just keeping that momentum, you are not alone at all. You know, there are tons of people who really recognize where you come from, and I've walked in those shoes. I get that. And you know, I was that student. And so I think as you chart a way for yourself, you're also charting the way for others. And, you know, it's like that quote of never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Um, you know, you really can make a huge difference to your menus. And I've seen it. I have seen the changes. You know, we threw up on the slide all these different beautiful pictures. These are real pictures from real school lunches. So it is possible. It is possible to add more plant-based options on your menu. Morgan, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, I second all of that. What inspired me to first go vegetarian and then vegan was the animals. I just really didn't want to support financially factory farms. And so that was my initial motivation. And then I did more personal research and I learned about the environmental impacts and the impacts on humans, on the factory farm workers and the people living nearby these facilities, and also people who can't digest dairy. And so all of those factors now combine to fuel my motivation. So I feel like it's kind of all of the above: animals, the planet, and people. Maya, do you want to quickly share your motivation too?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely resonate with a lot of the things that you said, Morgan. Like, factory farming touches so many different issues. And now that like I've been exposed to what those issues are, I can't ignore them. And what continues to inspire me is just continuing to be around so many amazing people that are also working towards a more just and sustainable food system. The Plant Powered Youth Steering Committee was definitely an eye-opening experience to me, just to know that there are students across the nation working towards the same goal. And yeah, I continue to be inspired every day and just know that the resources are out there. You just need to find them.
Great answers. There's no way I can follow that. I will just say, Maya, Morgan, Nora, everyone in this call, thank you for the work that you're doing, and y'all inspire me every day. Thank you to all the students that join this call on a weekday as well. I think we're gonna jump right into the raffle. So Maya, if you want to click the slide, we have a full little presentation for y'all. Let's see if it works.
We have
All
like the
right.
cutest little thing. Oh my Lord. Here we
Let's
go.
go.
All
Wow,
right.
drum roll.
Drum roll.
All right, Jessica. So we'll be
Awesome.
reaching out to Jessica. Chelsea, will you reach out to her?
Yes, I will be that person to reach out to y'all.
Okay.
But yeah, Nora, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, absolutely. We will be sending out a follow-up email to everybody. Maya, I don't know if you can throw up the last slide. Yeah, we'll be sending a follow-up email to everybody. With all of these slides, there's some really good videos and resources linked. So please feel welcome to use that as a resource to yourself. We also dropped our email in the chat and also in the PowerPoint, so do not hesitate to reach out to us. And we thank you all so much for being here on this call today. Morgan, is there anything else you want to say to everyone?
We've got a minute left, but thanks for taking the time to come and listen and be passionate about this topic. We need more people working on all this. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. Y'all are rock stars for being here. We appreciate you. And have a good evening. All right,
Bye,
bye
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.